friends, big day here. As I mentioned, it's the anniversary of our daughter's perinatal stroke diagnosis. So 8 years ago was when the adventure started. And every year on our diagnosis anniversary, I take the amazing healthcare provider that really leapt into action and took immediate care of Sadie. I take her flowers and a card because there's not really an adequate way to say thank you. So it's just important for me that she knows that we remember her every day on this day. And it also makes me remember kind of how we got started on this journey and that actual first day of diagnosis. And as I become more transparent and share our journey in an effort to help others that might be on a similar path, I thought it might be a good place to start is how we actually got our diagnosis. So first, for background, I had incredibly healthy pregnancy, easy pregnancy. Sadie just was not in a hurry to come out, and so we actually ended up with a C-section just because of failure to progress. That being said, it was textbook. It was very, very easy. Sadie came out healthy. Her APGAR was 9 out of 10, and we cruised through the first day and actually even the morning of the second day. And so then mid-morning, our amazing practitioner came, our healthcare provider, my primary care, to check Sadie and myself, and she did so, and at the time, everything seemed okay. So after her examination, we were kind of moved on to the social aspect and just catching up and chatting about one of her incredible daughters, and she was having an elbow issue related to her gymnastics and tumbling, and I literally remember what she was wearing. She had a Chiefs sweatshirt on, and they had just finished their season that year. And again, I can't remember what I had for breakfast this morning, but I can remember what she was wearing that day. And there was kind of a lull in the conversation, and I looked down at my daughter, and she looked down, and my daughter kind of turned like a shade of blue and purple, kind of gray, and she went into a posture where her arm was tucked and her leg was extended. And it definitely alarmed both of us and gave us pause, and then she came out of it and kind of pinked up a little bit. And then she went into it again. And immediately my amazing provider leapt into action and took Sadie and said, I'm going to go run some tests. And she took her out in the hall and she put oxygen on her. So she took her out to put oxygen on her. At this point in time, I was, the day after a C-section, I was heavily medicated. My poor husband was in the shower when all this happened, just trying to take a breath. And I was trying to regroup. At this point in time, I knew something wasn't right. So a bit more background. By education, I'm a chiropractor. I specialized in sports injury and family practice when I practiced. And that field, obviously, we have a pretty heavy background in neurology. And so I understood that posturing was atypical and that things were not in a great place. That being said, that particular posture looked like her arm was tucked and her leg was out. And in a prolonged brain trauma, or if that position is held, it's called a decorticate posture, but it does mean that there is damage to the brain. That being said, she was coming out of it, and then she would pink up and breathe again. And then when she went right back into it, those two together, the apnea with that posturing, are very, very common in something called a tonic seizure. And so clearly that was a problem. So my husband gets out of the shower. We kind of shuffle. By this time, they already have her up in the NICU, and they have put her in an isolette. And there's a team around her trying to get a game plan and figure out exactly what's going on. And just first shout out, that was our first exposure to the NICU, the incredible nurse practitioner that was there that kind of was leading us through this, and then the neonatologist and the rest of that team. They were simply incredible. We had every test run and a diagnosis within a couple hours of her initial seizure, which is incredibly fast to a diagnosis. So again, now we're up in the NICU, she's in her isolette, and they are running a battery of tests. Again, my husband is not in healthcare, and so there was a lot of translation going on based on what she was presenting at, and that they were trying to get answers quickly. So when you present with a seizure like that, the main focus is to try to figure out why they're happening. And in that population, the baby population, there's only a few things that kind of make that system go haywire and make the brain function in a way that it creates a seizure. And so within hours, we had an MRI, an echocardiogram, an EEG, and a diagnosis of a perinatal stroke. That being said, we are forever thankful. Sometimes Sundays are really challenging to get things done in a hospital because many of the specialists are out, and our NICU experience and our diagnosis experience was just unbelievable fast. And really, that access to care, the immediate access with our primary care physician knowing that there was a problem, and then the NICU team just jumping on it so quickly, in my opinion, was a divine intervention. And us getting that done that fast minimized Sadie's seizure activity, which then probably prevented significant secondary brain damage from the seizures themselves. So you have the stroke, which is damage, but then many times there's even more damage because the seizures themselves can create problems. So they take her away to do all these tests, and we go back down and kind of grab a few things, tell our family, yes, she's getting admitted. At this time, we don't actually have the diagnoses yet. We just know that there's a problem. They're running these tests. So they take her, they run the tests, we go back up, and in the time that we go back up, she has been admitted to the NICU in a room that is not a temporary isolation area. And so that was kind of hint number one, that we might be here for a little bit. Secondary to that, as we were walking down the hallway, I actually happened to glimpse into a provider that had an MRI pulled up, and it was an MRI of a brain. And I am certainly not a radiologist or a neurologist or a neurosurgeon, but I've had enough radiology to know that when a spot in a brain MRI is white in comparison to the area around it, that there's typically trauma there. And so as we're walking down the hallway, I see this. I immediately recognize that that is our daughter's image, and I am just heartbroken and in shock. So that being said, there was a period of time where I knew at least the basis of what was going on, but my husband didn't, because we had not had our reported findings with our provider, and that was hard. That was hard. There's a lot of moving parts when you're trying to get a game plan and figure out what's going on. And the NICU is a whole lot of hurry up and wait. You want your diagnosis, you want to take action. But really, when you get a diagnosis like that, and the whole purpose and goal is to calm the brain and let the kiddos rest, you really feel helpless. And again, we had not had our reported findings with our provider yet to actually give us our diagnosis. So very shortly thereafter, we had the opportunity to sit down with the neonatologist and the incredible social worker that was assigned to that unit, and another care provider, and that was when they said, your baby has had a stroke. And that was hard. Clinically, I knew exactly what that looked like. Parent-wise, I had no idea what that looked like. I'm still postpartum. My husband doesn't really have a clear understanding of what that means. And other than love your baby and sit with your baby, there's not much you can do. And that's hard. That feeling of helplessness is hard. So that being said, we had our diagnosis. And then it just became a matter of deciding what we were going to intentionally make that look like next. So just drop those flowers off. What a gift. And pretty special to take a trip down memory lane with her as well. So in the NICU, after our diagnosis, we were there for 9 days, which is a pretty quick release, honestly. Feeding is the main issue that keep a lot of stroke babies in the NICU. They have trouble with their swallow reflex. Sadie did great. She took a binky at a few days and a bottle and her NG tube removed at 5, and they sent us home on our own at 9, which is terrifying. And really, we just fell immediately into the arms of our tribe. Our family and friends lifted us up and rallied and supported us, and we are forever grateful. That tribe still does that for us. We are still so blessed with amazing people in our lives. And that's kind of when the real work starts, though. We also, just rest firmly in our faith. Oftentimes, when there isn't an explanation for something, that's something that is comforting to us. And it is a lot of work. And we have just spent the time since then ensuring that she has access to care and therapies, and also just sitting in awe of how incredibly resilient she is and how hard she works, which is a testament to her. And it's pretty incredible to get to see her thrive and just be an incredible little girl. And we are so blessed.